The vast majority of muscle building content out there is focused on entirely the wrong things. If you lift weights, but you don't look like you lift weights and you're just not seeing the results you want, it could be because you're paying attention to all the wrong things. So in this video, we're going to take a look at some of my training footage, and I'm going to show you the biggest muscle building mistakes that I see guys making in the gym, folks that I work with. That's just holding them back from seeing the results they want. But first, I want to show you just quickly how to avoid this trap of information and getting lost in all these things that don't really matter. You look at any men's health article, any blog posts, even a lot of content on YouTube and on Instagram or whatever, and you will see people talking about, oh, you got to get your zinc in to build muscle, you got to get your protein, you got to get your sleep in, etc. But that's not really the thing holding most people back from building muscle, is it? I mean, even if you're sleeping just 6 hours a night, you're getting an okay amount of protein in a typical Western diet and an okay amount of calories, you're still going to build muscle. That's not the limiting factor. It's your ability to generate a training stimulus that grows new muscle, right? So you need to send an effective muscle building signal to your body, tell it to grow size. But ultimately, a lot of people fail to do that. So how do you actually do that? Well, I'm going to show you here in a second. Here we go. This is some of my training footage from the previous week. This is just an upper body session that I was doing. And I think the very first thing we need to talk about, the most important thing, is just effort levels. The majority of folks are not training with an adequate degree of effort. They're not taking their sets close enough to failure in order to really drive a meaningful growth stimulus. As you get closer and closer to the point where you could not do another high quality rep, you are recruiting more and more of those little muscle building machines inside the muscle tissue and switching on more and more of that muscle, which is what stimulates growth. And most people might stop their set right here and say, oh, yeah, I did my 10th rep, my 12th rep, whatever. This set is good to go. When in reality, there was 5, 10 more reps that they could have squeezed out and just driven that much more progress. And it might not seem like a lot in one set, in one workout, but when you multiply that out over the course of 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 5 years, the difference in those two people at the end of that time period is absolutely massive. So I highly recommend taking the majority of your sets very close to failure, if not all the way to failure or beyond, on things like that machine pec deck or things like this machine row, where there's virtually no consequence of me going right to failure or even beyond failure. I can just get really, really hard training in, and yeah, I mean, there's not that much downside really. So the second part of driving an adequate muscle growth stimulus is ensuring that the technique you're using is actually targeting the muscle that you're trying to train. I could easily move this whole stack, easily. I could heave it, I could, use my legs and bend my knees and bounce in and out of this. I could even probably just move the stack while keeping my torso relatively stable. But there's no way in hell I could move the whole stack and have it be something that's just crushing my lats the same way this does. A slight forward lean, driving my elbows down and in until they get to about 90 degrees. It's just ripping my lats off the bone like crazy here. And I only have to use half the stack or just a little bit less than half the stack. Same thing here. I benched a lot more weight than this, but using this technique, controlled, deep, gentle tap on the chest, especially done after those pec flies, my chest is just getting absolutely fried. And I think that's a lot of what people are missing right now with, you'll see online people arguing about reps and sets. They say, oh, high rep sets aren't worth it. They're too fatiguing, yada, yada. Anything over 8 reps is cardio. Some people are saying anything over 6 reps is a waste of time. But in reality, higher reps actually give you a fantastic opportunity to use a technique that really crushes the muscle you're trying to train. Same thing with this single arm lat pull down / pull around thing that my coach has me doing. This isn't something I would have normally included, and not even something that I think a ton of beginners necessarily would benefit from, because just time of doing single arm stuff and it's a little more technique focused. I think you can get a lot out of just basic compound movements done under control, slow lowering, pushed close to failure. That is the fundamental start of really good muscle growth stimulus. But there's one more really important factor we need to talk about that ties all this together, because even if you're pushing hard in your training, even if you're controlling the weights and getting yourself close to failure, you will not build the muscle you want to build if you are not progressing your training. And I know everyone's heard about progressive overload. You know you need to be adding some, yada, yada. But nobody tells you actually the most important factor for that is keeping track of what you're doing in your training. I mean, honestly, how can you expect to make progress week to week, month to month, year to year if you don't even know what you did last week? It's impossible. How can you dictate what you're going to do in your training this week? How can you be informed if you don't know what you're doing? So I highly recommend keeping a training log, whether you're doing this on Google Sheets, in an app, in a notebook, OG style, videos, whatever it is. Record what you're doing. That way you can say, all right, cool. This week I matched my reps. I beat my reps. I added some weight. I slightly cleaned up the technique. Whatever it is, whatever method of progression you're using, we want to be able to add that. Same thing here, this incline press. I literally just beat the reps that I did previous week by 2 here, which was awesome. And I'll just slowly keep adding reps until I reach the top end of my rep range. I'll add some load, and then I'll continue on with the fight, adding reps, cleaning up technique, keeping everything nice and tidy. And then once I'm confident I'm doing enough reps with this load, I'll add some weight. And I think that videos are another really awesome layer. I just mentioned this briefly, but when you look back at these videos, you will know very honestly, number one, is my technique pretty solid here? Am I swinging? Do I abandon the technique that actually targets the muscle when I get close to failure? And am I even getting close to failure? If the bar never slows down, if you never get to the point where you're shaking and pushing hard against it, despite your best effort, the bar is just grinding its way up, well, that's a really good clue that what you're doing is probably not as hard as it needs to be. You could be doing a lot more reps. It's just an added layer of accountability and honesty to keep you moving in the right direction. I hope this helps. There's a free training plan linked in the description box if you want to just take a quick look through some of the guidelines I lay out for muscle building and have a nice tidy place to track all your training in one spot. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoy these kind of videos. Subscribe to the channel so you can see more just like this. And go check out this video next if you want a step-by-step plan that I put together all about how to lose fat while building muscle at the very same time.